start the webinar once we're unmuted. Okay. I think I can hear you now. I'll start the webinar when you guys give me the go ahead. Start the webinar. And Brandy, could you just speak into the microphone for me? I want to make sure it's working right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Hey, Stefan, it's Spencer.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Okay, never mind.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors to order. Brandy, if you take roll, please.
Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day. Here. Supervisor Ayers. Here. Supervisor McDaniel.
Here.
And Chairman Lyons.
Here. We'll have an invocation followed by the pledge, if you'd like to join us. Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless all in attendance tonight, bless all the citizens of Rockbridge County. I ask that you give us the strength to make the tough decisions that are necessary to keep the county functioning. And in your heart, please bring us the much needed rain. I ask these in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One special announcement: while the room will be open to the public, due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees other than county staff will be allowed into the room at one time, per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Executive Order 72. Persons who have been fully vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus are not required to wear a mask. We'll hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We'll do our best to take citizens' comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will need to use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by phone. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward. We have one introduction tonight. Mr. Slayton?
Yes. I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Musso. Chris joined the Office of Community Development as the zoning technician on May 10th and really hit the ground running. On May 12th, it was his first planning commission, and it ended up being the 5 action items that we have here before y'all tonight, so some of the public hearings we have. Needless to say, that was a very long work day for him, and he showed up and hit the ground running again the very next Thursday. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Musso to the Board of Supervisors. We're delighted to have him on board, and certainly look forward to him joining the team.
Yep. Hello, I'm very excited to be here. Happy to be here and serving people of Rockbridge County. Look forward to working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank y'all.
And
Chris,
welcome aboard.
Chris's.
All right, at this time, we'll welcome citizens' comments. To make a comment, please follow these guidelines. Sign up to speak on a citizen comment sign-up sheet. Once your name is called, address the board from the podium, beginning by clearly stating your name and magisterial district. This is an opportunity for citizens to provide comments on topics unrelated to the public hearings. Please do not expect the board to respond to your questions or engage in a dialogue. If you have questions, please ensure that you have entered your contact information on a citizen's comment sign-up sheet, and staff will do their best to respond to your question as soon as possible. Citizens are respectfully requested to keep their comments brief, not to speak for more than 3 minutes. There's a timer located on the podium for your convenience. When the light turns from green to yellow, you have 30 seconds remaining. Once the timer sets off an alert, please return to your seat if attending in person, or simply end your comment if you're attending virtually. The same rules applies for those attending virtually. Once your name is called, please state your name, magisterial district, and contact information for the record. Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, so we will open and close. Is there anyone that's out there that didn't sign up?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, and no one electronic. We'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. Have everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the May 10th meeting?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? And a second. Any discussion? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. The school appropriation resolution.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. If you go to your packet, you'll see a school appropriation for school equipment grant management. It's in a total of $143,382. I have some notes if there's any questions on that particular funding. If not, my recommendation is to approve it as presented.
You've heard the recommendation from Mr. Bolster. Are any questions?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second? Any further discussion? Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, we're going to continue it. Discussion on the cigarette tax.
Hello all. Sorry I had to participate remotely this evening. A little under the weather. It's just hay fever, but I didn't want anybody to think I was contaminating anything. So on the cigarette tax, after discussion on multiple occasions over the past several months, April 26th, the board held a public hearing to take comment on the potential to implement a cigarette tax. The ordinance was included for consideration, contemplated a 30-cent tax effective January 1st, 2022. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the board directed staff to add this to the meeting tonight, May 24th regular agenda for further discussion. One point of discussion in the April 26th meeting was concern about what other localities in the region are contemplating. Not much has really changed since that meeting. In your agenda package, you'll see Amherst County has adopted 27-cent tax effective July 1 of this year. Allegheny Bath and Vdot are not considering at this time, or that they haven't considered yet. Not sure if they will or not. And Rockingham is not planning to adopt. The only updates I can provide is that Augusta County may consider an option to join the regional consortium with the Thomas Jefferson Regional Planning District Commission. We had talked about in the past whether or not to join a regional consortium, and we didn't really recommend doing that. It seemed to be just as easy to do it ourselves if we were going to do it. Lexington considered this last Thursday, and it's set public hearing for 30 cents. Not sure when they might, if they do adopt 30 cents, the assumption it would be January 1, but they're going to consider that at public hearing at their first June meeting, which I believe is June the 4th. And again, we can't actually accurately predict what revenues would be generated by implementing such a tax. There's just too many variables to do, but I can say I don't think it would be insubstantial with 30 cents. Be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have at this point. The draft ordinance is attached. The same one that was published for public hearing is attached for your consideration.
Any questions?
I do for Ms. Huffman again, and I think I asked it last time, but just want to be clear again. the feedback that I got in regards to from convenience store owners and members was something to do, with the rate. If the rate were some less, that seemed more palatable to them. I know we already advertised this at 30, but would we be able to do something less without re-advertising going through that process?
Yes, sir. You can
Again?
go down, but you can't go up.
I thought that was the answer. I just wanted to be sure.
Anyone else?
Mr. Suter, would you just kind of go through the process of the whole stamps and kind of a quick overlap of how this would work for our convenience or for anybody selling cigarettes?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways it could be done, depending on the store. But essentially, the county would procure the stamps. We get our own identifiable stamp. There's two ways to do it. One way would be for the stamp to go to the distributor, directly to the distributor for the larger outlets that sell massive quantities of cigarettes. Your Walmart's, White's Truck Stop, that type of thing. And then the commissioner would also have stamps on hand, so that if a smaller locally owned convenience store that didn't sell quite as many cigarettes and maybe didn't get them from a distributor, they would come and buy them directly from the commissioner of revenue.
So the stores pay upfront, and then it's passed on to the consumer as they sell the packs.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Suter, you had said last time that we discussed this, that you thought it would cost about $10,000 to implement this. Is that still approximately what you think it might cost?
Can't remember exactly what I said, but I think it would be closer in the 20,000 range. And it depends too on how it's implemented. There's the more work that the stamper does to automate the process, the more, it'll cost a little bit more. But we've got to go through a procurement process to see exactly what that would be. In the overall scheme of things, as far as the cost versus the potential revenues received, it would not be a tremendous cost. Obviously, there is some work on the end of the commissioner's office managing this. And as I reported before, the sheriff's office has agreed to be the enforcement arm, or checking in from time to time with the store owners and sellers of the cigarettes.
So the estimate that you're giving, that's not going to change based on our rate. 20 cents,
No,
20 cents, 30 cents. That's our overhead. That's
well, it would not change, because the number of stamps would remain the same. So that's the cost is going to be the cost.
Any other comments?
My only other comment would be, I've had several operators in my district, contact me with concerns, especially with the unknown of what Vdot may do, being the nearest locality that people could travel to. It would be nice if it was simultaneous up and down the 81 corridor with similar rates. I realize it's, we can't control what other localities do, but for the owner and operators in my district, they're concerned about Vdot and the unknown there.
Do we have to take action on this tonight?
No, sir. But the more times you continue it, the more remote it comes from your public hearing. So after a time, depending on how far out it is, I would recommend re-advertising and holding another public hearing.
So if we went another 30 days,
That would be fine.
I think it's important to note, also in thinking about this, I agree with Bob. I may not be quite ready yet, but as Mr. Suter mentioned, the large volume of cigarettes that are sold at, on the interstate are, majority of those would not be our citizens. So again, if we do not enact, we're leaving revenue sitting out there that could take the place of personal property tax and real estate tax on our citizens. So I keep coming back to that thought in my head, and we are, lucky enough to have those two interstates, which generates, one of the highest traffic volumes in the United States. So, on that 81-64 combo piece, from here up to Stanton. So anyway, that's just a thought that I keep coming back to in considering this.
So is that a motion to delay for 30 days?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to delay for 30 days. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, if you put that. on,
May I ask one question?
Sure.
Mr. Spencer, do you think you could have a conversation with Vdot and follow up a little bit, see if they're inclined to have a discussion at the board level anytime soon, or have you done that?
I've done that with about every meeting that we've considered this, and I will continue to do it and see if there's any inclination to move ahead there. I have also had the discussion with before every meeting with Augusta County. Augusta County is still at last discussion, which was the middle of last week, they were still headed in the direction of considering 30 cents because that's where Stanton and Waynesboro already are. But I will follow up with the discussion of Vdot again.
Thank you.
Okay, well, yes.
Did we consider compensating the retailer for collecting this tax?
At this point, there hadn't been any discussion on that.
Has any jurisdiction
Yes, there has.
considered that?
Amherst did. I believe Amherst, and Ms. Huffman may be able to comment on this, but my understanding is that the reason it was set at 27 cents in Amherst was that 2 cents of that goes to the retailer.
Ms. Hoffman?
The cities and towns, I don't think have this, well, I know that they do not have the same limitations that counties do when imposing a tax. I took a look at this very early on because one of the ordinances we had to take a look at was the Amherst County ordinance, and they provided for some percentage to be discounted to their retailers. In my opinion, that does not comply with state law. There is no authorization. For counties, you have to have authorization to discount your taxes and give that money back to a private industry or retailer or business. We do not have that authority under the state code in the enabling legislation for this tax.
Any other questions? All right, the authorization of a tax refund to the Lexington Golf and Country Club. And I have, since I am a member of the Lexington Golf and Country Club, I am going to abstain from all matters, discussions, or voting related to the board's consideration of a business personal property tax refund to the Lexington Golf Country Club. And my disclosure statement required under Virginia Code 2.2-3115F is on file with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, I'm also a member and I abstain from matters, discussions, and voting related to the board's consideration. My disclosure statement required under Virginia Code 2.2-3115F is also on file with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this agenda item is based on a request from the Lexington Golf and Country Club for a refund of an overage in taxes paid for the years 2018, 2019, and 2020 for a total of $16,748.60. Interest would be due on the refund at the rate of 10% per annum. It's based on what we charge to citizens for delinquent taxes. State code requires that we refund at that same rate. Whenever there's a refund in an amount greater than $2,500, it requires the board's approval to authorize the treasurer to issue the refund. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
This was an error on their part in reporting to us.
It was, they had reported items that were either no longer in service or that they no longer owned. And when they had an audit done by a professional auditor, they discovered that there were a number of items which ended up reducing their actual filing for each of those years.
If it's a mistake on their part, why do we pay interest on that?
There is no distinction under the code between whose mistake it is. If you owe a refund, you pay interest.
But you can see with the interest rates being what they are, it's a pretty good savings account.
It certainly is, and we've been faced with in the past have been faced with even higher interest amounts for a refund where the dollar amounts were much higher, and it does amount to a savings account, whether it's by accident or not.
Is the interest included in the calculations?
No, sir. The interest calculation is, give me 1 minute, I have it here somewhere. I think it's around 2,500.
Was 10%. Which was the interest rate, right?
10%. So it would be 10% for 3 years on the 2018 refund, 10% for 2 years on the 2019 refund, and 10% for 1 year on the 2020 refund.
So that is automatic. There's nothing, according to state code, we can do about
That's correct. The amount changes depending on when that refund is issued. So I did not include the refund amount in the authorization amount because by code we're required to pay it, and it will be whatever it is when it's paid.
Mhm.
For example, it will change if it's paid in May versus June.
Right. So we shouldn't delay.
I understand that there's nothing in code, state code, that it doesn't matter who made the mistake, but that should be something that we add to our legislative priorities when we discuss with our legislators, that it needs to be addressed in code. It's not the county's fault that the information was provided to us inaccurately. And here we are having to pay a penalty and interest back to the organization. So that's something that should be added to our priorities list that we discussed with state level.
I'll make a note of it.
Is there a motion to approve? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second,
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Huffman, board salary briefing.
Oh, my.
Would you like mine?
If you have it handy, I'll take it.
Here you
I'm
go.
not sure what I've done. I'm sorry. Okay. This agenda item is just to brief the board on the annual opportunity to set or alter board salaries. The traditional method is to establish the board salary each year. Year before last, the board set the salary pursuant to the more modern statute that authorizes variations from that traditional method. And it can only be done in the year when at least 40% of the board members are running for office, and then it is effective for that following January 1 when those elected board members would be running. So this is a year when the board has the opportunity to make adjustments pursuant to that more modern option for establishing board salaries. And I just wanted to make you aware of it. If you have an interest in making any changes or adjusting the current either method or amount, I'd appreciate some direction from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman.
Yes, sir.
Any comments? Hearing none, I think that sets the direction that there is no interest.
Thank you very much.
All right, consideration of the Boxwood application for outdoor events. Mr. Slade?
This is a application for outdoor events for Boxerwood. Unlike Boxerwood Woodstock that went on for a 2-year period, for last, I think, 3 to 5 years, they've been doing smaller concerts considered concerts in the park. And so that does require an outdoor application to be approved by y'all annually. And that's the process that we're in now.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Are the neighbors happy with this event?
We have not heard that, unlike Boxer Woodstock that did cause some destruction in the community, we have not heard any negative aspects of the music in the park. And with that, if we could check on the attendees, and I'm able to do it as well, there could be someone that is attending that would like to attending via Zoom that would like to comment.
There is one hand raised
Okay.
from a McCrants.
That's not a name I'm familiar with, but if it's pertaining to Boxerwood, I think if the chair thinks it's appropriate, we could certainly let them speak.
All right, I'll give them permission to speak.
Thank you.
McCrants. Okay. Unmute, please.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. My name is Matt Krantz. I'm one of the members of the board at Boxerwood. And Mr. Slago, thank you for the introduction. This is an event that we have been putting on, our series of events that we've been doing since 2014. And it's, as you said, much more low-key than Boxerwood side. It is a mostly family event where people can lay out on the lawn, listen to music. It typically is amplified, but not very loud. Me being one of the prominent neighbors to Boxerwood, I can tell you it is not a disturbance, and we haven't had any concerns over that. But it's a great time for families to interact with nature, to get to know Boxerwood and the gardens, and get to find out a little bit about Boxerwood. And it's one of the arms of our mission statement to reach out to the community, to educate and connect with nature, to allow better stewardship of Earth.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Any discussion from the board?
I would just like to say that many people enjoy these events. And so, you know, I have nothing but good things to say, and I haven't, and I'm glad to hear that there haven't been any complaints about the music.
So is that a motion to approve?
Yes, it's a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Ayers? Mr.
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Chris. It's now 6:01 and we're ready to start our public hearings. The first of the public hearing will be our Vdot 6-year plan. Mr. Suter, Ms. Hammond's with us.
Yes. So annually, the board and VDOT take public comment on the VDOT State Secondary 6-year plan prior to approval. Local approval of the plan is required before the end of each fiscal year, which is June 30. After initial presentation by Ms. Hammond on April 26th, the draft plan was duly advertised for public hearing on May 24th, today. The board subsequently had brief discussion of the plan at its last regular meeting on May the 10th. And to date, we've received several comments on the plan. I guess the most interest from the most number of people have been on Fredericksburg Road, Route 623. We received comments both for and against inclusion of the Fredericksburg Road in the Carrs Creek District, and I've provided all those comments to the board. We received one petition in support of inclusion and expect to receive another petition against inclusion this evening. I have forwarded the language that was included in the against petition to the board, but didn't have the signatures at the time. But at Chairman Lyons' request, went ahead and forwarded the language in that. Also, Hops Hill Road, Route 679. A resident on Hops Hill Road has requested inclusion of the Natural Bridge District Road in the 6-year plan, and I also provided the board with a copy of his request. Round Hill Road, Route 698, and at request of the citizen, Supervisor Ayers met with a resident of Round Hill Road, who on behalf of his neighbors requested consideration of adding a section of Round Hill Road from its intersection with Forge Road, which is Route 608, to a point approximately 1/2 mile west, headed towards in the direction of the interstate. And then Union Run, we've received 2 citizen requests to move Union Run up in the list for completion. I've forwarded these to the board as well. And as you consider all these, please be aware that typically all available funds are slated for expenditure in the draft plan. Thus, if a project is added to the approved plan, generally another project must come off. And these aren't always the same dollar figures. For example, if there's a request to move a road that has 2 miles of paving involved, and you can't just take one off that has a 1/4 mile of paving because the dollars don't match. You'd almost have to look at taking a couple of them off to get to the amount of funding that would be needed. If the board wishes to add a project for consideration, the general practice is to request VDOT to study it. And if the project meets VDOT minimum requirements, it can be added to consideration in the next round, which would be in the spring of 2022, as other projects are completed and more funding then therefore becomes available. And as you can see, Ms. Hammond is joining us virtually to answer any questions the board may have. And after taking public comment, the board does have a couple of options. If the board's comfortable with the plan as presented or amended, you may move to approve the plan this evening. If additional study or consideration is required, you may provide direction to VDOT and staff to return to the board at the next regular meeting on June 14th for final consideration of approval. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you've got. And as you see, Ms. Hammond is on the line, and Alvin Trout with VDOT is also with us.
Any questions for Mr. Suter or Ms. Hammond?
I have a question on behalf of some citizens. Little Dry Hollow. Ms. Hammond, can you talk a little bit about that project and where it is?
And Susan, you are muted. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying not to rustle papers on the mic. The section of Little Dry Hollow that we have in the plan is Route 659. We have it shown as a rural rustic project, and it goes from the north intersection of Route 644 to the south intersection of Route 644. It's a distance of 0.3 miles. Was there anything additional that you had a question about?
The questions were that apparently that this particular project went on and off. Is it, just want to make sure, the citizens that I talked to want to make sure this is very much in the project, and I thought it would be better coming from you than from me, that it very much will not, it is not slated to come off.
No, not that I'm aware of. And I know that I believe it was before my tenure in this position that the project came off of the 6-year plan, but it was added back a couple of years ago. And yeah, unless the board has any desire to move it, it should stay in there with adoption.
Okay. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Then at this time, we'll open the public hearing on the VDOT 6-year plan. Chris, if you get the list.
Signed up first, Loretta Persinger.
Hello, my name is Loretta Persinger, and I live in the Carrs Creek Magistral District at 1476 Fredericksburg Road, Rockbridge, Mass. I'm here to present this petition in opposition of paving the unpaved section of Fredericksburg Road and to voice some of our concerns. I've lived on this section of the road for 38 years and have seen a significant increase in the traffic over the years. The road is used as a throughway for a fair amount of non-residential traffic, and we often see higher speeds than the road can safely handle, especially when meeting the UPS or the FedEx trucks. We feel that paving the road would greatly increase the speeds and make it more dangerous. The road is narrow, has bad drainage and dangerous drop-offs into the ditches, and we feel that paving would not resolve these issues. Some other people I know are in favor of paving, and with the dust being the major issue, and I totally understand that. I value our neighbors, their talents and their contributions, so between now and 2028, when the road is scheduled to be paved, I hope we can all work together with Vdot to address and resolve some of the issues of the road and hopefully come up with some acceptable solutions to our concerns. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. And if you give your petition to.
Okay, this is the original.
Right. And
I have other copies of the original if you would like a copy of them.
I've made copies. And
Would you like a copy of the ones that have the signatures on them?
we'll have it sent out electronic.
Okay. Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Persinger. I also live in the Carrs Creek District. I also live with that young lady there, and I won't add too much more to what she's already said, but 1476 is where we live. We're right in the middle of this. But Fredericksburg Road, at least our section of it, the dirt portion, is a ditch. It's a ditch. And it runs downhill and it runs uphill. Downhill, the water flows. It flows for us from our neighbor, Mr. Hoffel, all the way down to farmhouse at the Birches. That water has to go all the way down that long grade and make a right-hand turn to get to the drainage. The state tries to go from one side of the road to the other side of the road. You just can't handle it the way it is. I have no problem with it being paved. I just don't want to see a bad situation made worse. I don't want to wake up and hear trucks, paving equipment, and they're doing something like Waterloo Road. That's a narrow little road, but it's a one-way road. This is a through road. We have tractor trailers that come in there, and that's always a trip for one of those guys comes in because they got to make a decision. Oh my God, what do I do now? Or do I go on through? It's like running the gauntlet for those guys. So if it looked like the road from 60 to the highway department, that would be a good thing, but it's not going to happen, and we know it's not going to happen. The amount of excavation and road work you would have to do would be just too expensive. They're not going to do that. And so if all you got to do is a grade, dump, and spread, that's very simple. But to pave it, how you gonna fix that? How you gonna pull a ditch or paving on a narrow road like that? I just don't see it. So I hope you give it some consideration, and I hope if they finally do get around to doing something, they would at least come and talk to us about it. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next signed up is Mr. William Whiterow.
William Wydrow, Carrs Creek, 1798 Fredericksburg Road. Good evening. I'm here to speak in favor of paving Fredericksburg Road. I've been driving most of the length of that road for 21 years, and our family house is on the unpaved section. I was very pleased when Vdot announced its intentions to pave the unpaved section. Why? Because for those 21 years, we have endured the dusty grime on our cars, and that dusty grime getting on our clothes and getting in and out of our cars and then loading and unloading them. Also, a coating of dust on our car's back windows consistently obscures our view out of those windows. And after some research by some neighbors, I am now aware that not only are the dust particles harmful to breathe, but there are toxic aerosol particles in the dust that can travel airborne a significant distance. Paving would eliminate both this health risk and other dust annoyances. Vdot informed us that for the last 8 years, they've had a more limited budget for materials and less time available for maintaining this road. Therefore, we have suffered stretches of time when we must cope with potholes, erosion ditches, and washboarding. The road grader operator is very skilled, but when the road is scraped, it leaves fist-sized rocks that we must bump over and then kick up and clang against the underside of our vehicles. In fact, this maintenance surfacing happened just 2 weeks ago. Look at these samples I picked up from the road. These are not exceptions. These are common after the grading happens. And I don't think any paved road would find this acceptable. Following in the dust of other cars is also never very pleasant. Even worse is passing a car going in the opposite direction, because then you are driving into the dust it has stirred up. In addition, the manufacturer's maintenance schedules for our cars include increased service requirements for cars that routinely travel on unpaved, dirty, dusty roads. Every 5,000 miles, there are extra things that need to be maintained. Some other points. Safety-wise, paved roads have a shorter vehicle stopping distance. They don't produce unhealthy dust, which can include toxic airborne aerosol particles. Also, paved roads don't have gravel that washes off and clogs the drainage ditches and culverts. I like living on Fredericksburg Road. I would love it if you pave it. I look forward for that paving to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I live on Little Dry Holler, and for some 20 years, we've been trying to get on a 6-year plan. It's the longest 6 years I've seen in my life. As the young lady on the highway said a while ago, we're in here in like about 2014, thinking we'd been on the list, as assured us by our supervisor of 3 supervisors ago, and found out that we've been taken off the list. Nobody knows why, how, figuring politics were involved. A little dismayed with the fact that after checking the other day that we're on the list, money hasn't even started being put into it, and when it does start, it would be construction on the 2026. That's a long 6 years from 2000. And anyway, what I'm saying is, well, I hope this board doesn't do politicking like with the roads and people's lives like previous boards have done. We just want our process to work out. I don't want to see people pass us. If somebody comes in and wants a road done, they can get on the bottom of the list. They can wait 20 years like we've waited. You know what I mean? So, but everybody takes his own place in line. And I appreciate that. And thank you, Ms. Harris. She answered some of the questions that I had. Although I did think, I thought I heard her say 0.3 of a mile.
She's here. She can answer any questions that we have. But I think that
The length of the road, 659. It's 3 miles, not 0.3.
maybe that's a typo. Maybe it's 3 miles and not 0.3. Ms. Ham-
I'll go back and double check to make sure we have that distance correct.
Yes. For $500,000, let's hope it's 3 miles and not 0.3.
Yeah, 0.3, it would be considerably less than that. I have to think that that was just a typo, but thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Kevin McCusty. My address is 1376 Fredericksburg Road, Rockbridge, Bass, which is the Carrs Creek district. I'm here this evening to comment on the proposed inclusion of the gravel portion of Fredericksburg Road in your road improvement plan. Along with the cloggers, I worked to obtain a petition from our neighbors in support of the hard surfacing of the gravel road. There are 17 properties that actually access Fredericksburg Road in the gravel part. The owners of those properties, one of them is unable to sign a petition because of his job, leaving 16 properties. We have support from 12 properties, 12 of the 16 or 75%. And most of those people feel pretty strongly about the need to make an improvement and suffering far too long. Just a couple of few quick comments on the thinking that most people had. Maintenance of the road is a huge issue, as you've already heard. It's constantly full of potholes, washboarding, and drainage ruts every time it rains. Dust is a huge issue with health consequences, as you also have heard. The dust contains a lot of dangerous chemicals to health, both people and animals. Dust also creates visibility issues and safety issues. Everyone we talk to is aware that there is a possibility of some increase in traffic if this improvement is made.
also possibly some increase in speed of traffic. We don't think those are going to be as severe as some people initially react to them, partly because the road is hilly and curvy and narrow, and that part doesn't change. The bottom line is we've been complaining to Vdot for years about the condition of the road and how poor it is, and they've, I think, done a good job explaining to us within the budget that they have. They're doing what they can do, and there just won't be improvement as long as we have this gravel surface. So this proposal to pave essentially the existing road surface with tar and gravel is really the minimum work that can be done to fix this problem. So we really want you to vote for it. Hope you will. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that would like to speak?
I'm Deborah Plauger, and I live at 1622 Fredericksburg, 32 Fredericksburg Road. And Kevin and I both have worked together on the petition for, and I can spit on the road, my house. I cannot open the windows at my house. Thank goodness I have air conditioning, but it's just a dust bowl. And like Kevin said, you know, speed may be a factor, but if they go too much faster, they're going to have an airplane. And I would just really like to thank you and would like you to consider voting for surface treatment of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then we will close the public hearing on the Vdot 6-year plan. Any comments from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Move to approve. Okay. And a second. A motion and a second. All right, Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
And the chair will vote yes and ask that Vdot continues to communicate with the people, especially Fredericksburg Road, so that they know what's going on. I think it's been great that they all came out tonight. It's always nice to hear the opinions, but they're a close-knit community, both for and against, and I think they want to work together and do the best thing. So if Ms. Hammond, if you can keep them informed and work with them, maybe we can address some of the other problems. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I ask, in terms of process, Ms. Hammond, so the Round Hill and Hotz Hill Road, if I understood this process correctly, you will then study both of those and make a decision. Vdot considers those?
Yes, what we can do is look at those for potential inclusion, providing they meet criteria for next year. And we will have that information to you. I'll try to make sure that you have that through Mr. Suter in advance of any conversation about the draft plan next year. So you'll be aware of what can go in and what might not be eligible.
I think another point to bring up when we're looking at these plans is I think we have a pretty good plan. It's one of the reasons I support it as far as equality across the magisterial district. I've got every dirt road in Walker's Creek that people want paved. So there's no lack of roads to add to this plan. So I think, you know, as I review it, that's something that I look at. Walker's Creek has several. I think we're doing good. I think Fredericksburg is a good addition. Carrs Creek, it comes our way. But anyway, that's just something that I would hope we can all be cognizant of too, is, you know, when we're looking at adding roads, sort of trying to balance that so that all the county citizens get some benefit from money.
Agree.
Thank you.
And I think it's also good that we keep communication with Ms. Hammond's ongoing, just not certain times of the year when we have these processes, because just as we heard tonight, it's one thing to pave a road, but really maybe there needs to be more done to the road than just tar and gravel. The drainage issues, the curves, there are certain roads within the county that I just don't think are wide enough for the traffic that's on them, and the shoulders are not adequate. So I think an ongoing communication between the supervisors and Vdot is needed throughout the year, just not at these particular instances.
Right, and just a compliment to VDOT. I know when I do hear from constituents about a problem with a road, they're pretty quick to get out and make it right. So if there's a problem, you know, anywhere from a pothole to, you know, branches falling on the road, you know, feel free to pick up the phone and give one of us a call. Not that you can't call VDOT, but, you know, they tend to respond a little quicker when we get a hold of Mr. Suter and he reaches out to him. He must have a special number. So, but they, there's a lot of roads in the county, but they do a great job when they're asked to fix something. So please don't hesitate. Now we're ready to move on with Thunder Bridge Campground.
Bear with me. I'd like to share my screen.
While you're doing that, all our friends from Fredericksburg Road, you're welcome to stay, but I understand if you want to get home. So now would be a good time to slip out.
All right, this is, bear with me here. Try to get this out of the way. So I do not have a formal PowerPoint presentation for our first agenda item. Our first agenda item is the Thunder Bridge Campground LLC, Arnolds Valley Road, application for rezoning from the Conservation District to the Agricultural Transitional. So just to get everyone oriented, well, I'll just go ahead with my presentation, then refer back to the map. Thunder Bridge Campground LLC, Mr. James Panabaker and family, and the Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice has made an application for rezoning from Conservation C1 zoning district to the Agricultural Transitioning zoning district. That's the AT zoning district. The purpose of the rezoning is to utilize the property for a campground / private seasonal camp. The property is owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice, and the property was previously utilized for the Juvenile Detention Center and a campground for the Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations. Thunder Bridge Campground LLC is the contract purchaser of the property. The property located at 1425 Arnold Valley Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24579 is located on the east and west sides of the Arnold Valley Road, approximately 0.41 miles south of the intersection of Arnold Valley Road and Back Run Road. It's further identified as tax map number 113-A-7 and consists of 99.08 acres. The property is located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. Per section 601.03 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, I quote, "A return of such private lands by sale or trade into private ownership shall cause such lands to revert to the zoning of the surrounding district." This section of the regulations is problematic. In this case, as you can see in the map, the 99.08 acre parcel is on the east and west side of Arnold Valley Road and is outlined in orange. That's problematic because there are different zoning districts to the north and south. The C1 zoning to the east and west, AT zoning, that's an agricultural transitional zoning, to the north, and agricultural general use to the south. Due to the various zoning districts and other concerns about an automatic conversion, staff has recommended that the landowner and contract purchaser proceed with the rezoning application. On May 12th, at the May 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, held the public hearing of the rezoning application and has made a recommendation to approve the rezoning application. Most of this discussion will focus solely on the rezoning, and of course, our very next public hearing is the campground application, dependent on the outcome of this public hearing. With that, I would like to turn this portion over to Mr. James Pennebaker to review some details of the rezoning application.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for considering our plans for the former Natural Bridge Juvenile Corrections Center, often referred to in our neighborhood as the Boys Home. I'm James Pennebaker, and I'd like to introduce my wife, Karen, and son, Adam. We've lived 2 miles from the Boys Home for 20 years, and we'll be doing this project together. As Mr. Sladen explained, we're in the process of buying the Boys Home from the Commonwealth. We made our offer back in October, and actually we plan to close this week. We'd like to operate a primitive campground using the facilities that already exist. We'll get into that in more detail if you approve this rezoning application. We have other ideas, such as music and art opportunities, but we'll have to come back to you some other time to discuss those plans. I'd like to take a moment to explain the name, Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. Our name reflects both history and geography. Note that the B and R in bridge are capitalized, as in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Civilian Conservation Corps set up a camp on the property and built many of the buildings. These men published a newsletter called The Bridge, with a capital B and a capital R. Later, the boys at the Boys Home built a log cabin in the forested area called the Bridge Cabin, again, capital B, capital R. Thunder Ridge is the mountain ridge that rises behind the property. The Commonwealth operated Thunder Ridge High School on the property for the boys. And of course, the Natural Bridge is a nearby landmark. The word bridge also represents a tie between prison life and the rest of society, and between daily life and getaways. So we came up with the name Thunder Bridge Campground LLC. As a first step tonight, we're hoping you'll rezone the property from C1 to AT. We've been told the property needs to revert to the zoning of the contiguous properties. As Mr. Sladen pointed out, this isn't quite as easy as it sounds because the surrounding properties are zoned C1, AT, and A2. We think AT makes sense because most of the nearby properties to the north of Petite's Gap, as our property is north of Petite's Gap, are zoned AT, which would enable us to make the best use of the existing buildings and other facilities. Thank you very much. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have some.
Any questions? Is this the part that the neighbor's land, I guess, before you, just as you enter the property where the greenhouse is?
Yes.
Will this take care of what we're doing here?
It is in the, that property, that portion of that particular property is included in the application for rezone.
Okay.
Yes.
We have agreed that we're going to give them a 50-acre, I'm 50, not acre, a 50-foot addition to their property as a boundary line adjustment.
Yes, sir.
But will that take place in this particular or in the next one?
Really, no action taken tonight will take care of that. That's administrative action of a boundary line adjustment plat. I am working on a subdivision, which I think I mentioned in the next, that I'm working with the Attorney General's office and the Pennebaker family on a subdivision of the property that includes the portion that you're referring to. And I think that's mentioned in the next one, the exact acreage of that particular subdivision that they're currently working on.
And it's my understanding you won't be operating the sewage treatment facility.
That's right.
Will that stay with the state, or how does that work?
That is actually being proposed, and this might be repetitive on next one, but we're working on, I believe it's a 4.42 acre subdivision that includes the sewage treatment plant and surrounding area. That's also, the area that the greenhouse is on. And so once that's subdivided, it's my understanding that that will be subdivided. I actually have the plat in the office, but I've not received the application or fee associated with that plat. With that being said, it's my understanding that the Commonwealth of Virginia will retain that 4.42 acres until the sewage treatment plant is fully decommissioned. And at that time, then that sale or that transfer will go to the Thunderbridge Campground LLC.
Actually, 2 deeds are going to be executed and put in escrow. Well, the second one, the one for the sewage treatment plant, will be put in escrow and then transferred to us after decommissioning occurs.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
There's no one signed up. There's no one signed up.
Is there anybody online?
There are no hands raised at the moment.
Okay. Then at this time, we will close the public hearing. Any discussion among the board?
Mr. Chairman, I had the opportunity to visit the property and speak with the Panabakers, and I feel what they're doing is great usage of the property and will serve the community well. And I haven't heard anything from any neighbors around the area that any objections to it. So I think it'd be good for the community.
So is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second?
And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Before we proceed, I had a chat that you could not hear me. The audience could not hear me. Can y'all hear me now, Stefan or Spencer, Mr. Suter?
Yeah, Chris, I can hear you now. It's just when you're speaking, when you're over by the desk is when we can't hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Proceeding to the next agenda item, bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen one more time. And I do have, from here on out, I do have formal PowerPoint presentations to guide me. All right, the next agenda item is Thunderbridge Campground LLC, Arnolds Valley Road, application for a special exception permit for a campground / private seasonal camp in the agricultural transitional district. Reviewing the area zoning map, the white on the map is the agricultural and general use districts, A2. The pink on the map is the agricultural transitional districts, AT, and the green is the conservation district. The Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice parcel is outlined in orange, is identified as tax map number 113-A-7 and consists of 99.08 acres. The action taken by the board tonight rezoned the 99.08 acres from the C1 zoning district to the A2 zone at the AT zoning district. And so that will be updated this week to reflect that change. Per the special exception application itself, Thunderbridge Campground LLC, again, Mr. James Panabaker and family have made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop a campground / private seasonal camp. The property is owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia State Board of Juvenile Justice and has obviously been rezoned from C1 to the AT zoning district. Per section 603B, 0.03-8 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, campgrounds, private seasonal camps are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. Per section per section 302.03 of the regulations, a campground shall mean any plot of ground used, maintained, or held out to the public, wholly or in part, as a temporary accommodations of tents, expandable camp trailers, travel trailers, converted buses or trucks, or other such devices that may be developed and marketing for camping, whether privately or publicly owned, whether such use is and whether use of such accommodations is granted for free or for compensation. Per section 302.159 of the regulations, a private seasonal campground is defined as a building or buildings, structure or structures, temporary or permanent, and related facilities owned and operated by a corporation, association, groups of individuals, or a private individual established for fraternal, social, educational, religious, recreational, or cultural enrichment of users. And so I wanted to read both of those definitions because this is sort of a hybrid between the two. While there is some traditional camping going on, as RVs, tent trailers, campers, that type of thing, there's also a number of existing buildings that will also be utilized for short-term rentals. Per the written description of plans, the proposed use includes a rustic campground with up to 50 sites, including 35 tent small camper sites, 10 dry boondock RV sites, 2 log cabins, 3 250 square foot, 240 square foot frame buildings, additionally 10 overnight cottages, 4 barracks for group rentals, and a residence for camp manager, and several recreational buildings to be used for athletic and exercise activities, arts and crafts, music. The water, restroom, and shower facilities will be available for campers at the pavilion and the barracks building. The map on the screens is the schematic plan for Thunderbridge Campground LLC that is referenced in the draft condition. The Commonwealth of Virginia is in the process of decommissioning the existing sewage treatment facility. Staff has worked with the Attorney General's office on a single subdivision lot to subdivide a 4.429 acre tract around the existing treatment facility. The plat has not been the plat has been submitted, but not approved yet. We're still working on the application and receiving the fee associated with that. The current plan is to transfer the additional 94.651 acres to the LLC and then transfer the 4.429 acres after the treatment facility is decommissioned. Thunderbridge Campground LLC has worked with a local soil survey consultant and has submitted plans to the health department for drain fields to serve the property. The athletic, exercise, arts and crafts, and other recreational buildings will be for the use of the patrons of the campground themselves. At the May 12th, 2021 meeting, the Planning Commission held its public hearing on the application and has recommended approval with the following conditions. Number 1, the development of the property, again, tax map 113-A-7, for which the application is being made, shall be in substantial accordance with the schematic plan titled Thunderbridge Campground LLC. Number 2, approval contingent on from Vdot, Building Department, and Health Department approvals. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Panabaker to review the details of the special exception application. Yes, sir. Yep, if you start, I can put the map on.
Thank you for approving the rezoning. We're now seeking a special exception to allow us to operate a campground using the existing improvements on the property. This would not be a new use for the property. For many years, the Boys Camp and the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization operated a campground on the back forested area of the property. They called it Camp New Hope. If you Google Camp New Hope, you'll find write-ups from folks who share fond memories of summertime at Camp New Hope. We would like to bring those memories back to life. We plan to offer a primitive campground with up to 50 sites. Unlike most campgrounds these days, we want to offer the quiet privacy of spacious campsites so campers can choose whether to spend their time alone or with other campers. We'll encourage the use of the many facilities available in Rockbridge and nearby counties, while we also expect interest in our own historic facilities. They include 2 vintage log cabins, 3 screened overnight shelters, a pavilion with kitchen, dining room, toilets, and showers, 4 barracks buildings, cottages, an obstacle course, ball fields, and a gymnasium. Karen and I both are artists and musicians, so we're especially interested in attracting campers interested in the arts. We'll make studio space available for campers who are artists or musicians. We've applied to the Health Department for approvals for 2 conventional septic fields and plan to soon submit a 3rd application to provide a dump station for a few RVs. We filed a campground plan application with the Health Department, which we've been told is fine, and we've discussed with the Office of Drinking Water use of the well that has served the property for many years. We've also submitted a draft preliminary information form for historic designation to the Department of Historic Resources. We're very excited about our campground and other possible uses of the property. We want to bring new life to a resource that has lain dormant since the Commonwealth closed the Boys Home 10 years ago. Please approve this special exception. Thank you very much. Did either of you have anything to add? I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, is there anyone online with their hand raised? Hearing none.
Sorry, yeah, there are none at the moment.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing. Discussion by the board or motions?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve? You have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yep.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, there's Chaos Mountain Brewing.
Yes, sir. Bear with me here. Just share the screen. All right, our next agenda item is for Chaos Mountain Brewery LLC, Mr. Joe Hollock. The property is located on South Lee Highway. It's an application for a special exception permit for beverage manufacturing in the general business B1 zoning district. To review the area zoning map, with obviously the large majority of the zoning map is dark red. That's located in the general business zoning. The pink to the south is agricultural transitional, and the white to the north, if you will, is agricultural general A2 zoning district. The Stonewall Lodge and Cottages LLC parcel is outlined in orange and identified as tax map number 106-50-34 and consists of 28.47 acres per tax records. Mr. Joseph Hollock with Chaos Mountain Brewing has made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop a satellite brewery and tasting room. The current operation is located in Callaway, Virginia. This will be a satellite brewery and tasting room. Per section 605.03-5 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations, beverage manufacturing is a use by special exception in the B1 district. The manufacturing component of the operation will consist of bringing fermented beer wort to the site and carbonate the wort in order to manufacture and keg the beer itself. The property, again, is owned by Stonewall Lodge and Cottages LLC, is located in the B1 zoning district. While the property consists of 28.74 acres, the satellite brewery and tasting room will only be utilizing a small portion around the existing building. The property also includes a portion of the Natural Bridge Hotel known as Cottage Hill. Current parking plan shows a total of 33 parking spaces per section 703.03-4, 3 off-street parking requirements. This will allow for approximately 120 seats inside and outside for patron use. The Tourism Corridor Overlay Board will be reviewing the proposed exterior improvements at its June 2nd, 2021 meeting. Exterior improvements includes modification of the existing signage, placement of a cooler building, wall signage, lighting, color of the color scheme for the trim, and the addition of outdoor seating area. Planning Commission at its May 12th, 2021, the Planning Commission held its planning public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, the development of the property 106-50-34, for which the application is being made, shall be in substantial accordance with the schematic plan titled 6387 South Lee Highway, and dated May 6, 2021, with a revision date of May 21st, 2021. Approval contingent on final approval from the TCO board, Vdot, and ABC licensing. I would like just to explain, obviously, the schematic site plan has been updated since the Planning Commission meeting, and I'd just like to review that briefly. So let me see if I can get my pointer going. So the only change between this one that's currently shown on the display here and what the Planning Commission saw was the original plan only closed this middle entrance, if you will. Since that time, I've had a conversation with Alvin Trout, the assistant resident engineer with the local Vdot office, and the general manager of the hotel itself, and then of course Mr. Hollick. And it has been determined, or has been, I'm not sure if it's a requirement or a recommendation from Vdot side, but it's been recommended or required that this entrance also be closed down. Looking at the site, it certainly makes sense. This is a somewhat of a problematic intersection of Wark Faulkner and North Lee Highway. And if you're traveling south, I would concur that the safest entrance is the first entrance. And the positive side of that is also will potentially provide a couple more parking spaces that could go on this particular lot, because they no longer are utilizing that portion of the entrance or exit. So that is the only revision to the schematic site plan, and that's why it was revised on May 21st, 2021. With that, I'd like to turn this portion over of the presentation to Mr. Jim Hollick with Chaos Mountain Brewery to review the additional details of the project.
As he explained, basically, it's a provision in the Virginia ABC code for us to actually operate a satellite brewery. We have to manufacture beer at that location. We currently have a 20,000 square foot brewery in Callaway, Virginia. Just had our 7th anniversary last Saturday. I'm still tired. So we actually will be brewing and bringing beer, which has been fermented, to the location, where we will have what are called small bright tanks in the walk-in cooler. We'll transfer the beer to that, carbonate it, keg it, and then serve it out of the location. The only real changes to the interior of the building are to completely remove the bathrooms. Right now they face the road because they're outside entrance from an old gas station. They're about 3 foot by 5 foot. So we'll have to take those out and replace them with 8 foot by 8 foot ADA compliant bathrooms. Other than that, the interior of the building remains basically the same, and the exterior of the building, we're not changing at all, other than to repair and replace trim as necessary and to change the color scheme. We will be adding lights on the front over the garage bay doors. Those will be LED, they're called pack lights, and they are shielded, so they only shine downward, not outward. So I actually, when I was here for the zoning meeting, I met with one of the guys from the state park, and we discussed that because of their nighttime program. So we're on board with that. The signage would be fairly close to what it is right now. It's a large rectangular sign on the gable on the front of the building, but that color scheme would change, and obviously the sign itself would change. Outside seating, we plan to put in a patio seating for roughly about 50 to 60 people. The hotel will be operating a food truck adjacent to our building, so there will be food served. We always have a food truck at our current brewery because no one should serve alcohol unless they're serving food. All of our employees are ABC safe serve trained. They have to pass the course online in order to work for us. We're really concerned about our customers and the community. So we try to make sure that everybody does a good job and nobody gets carried away. Any questions?
Would you be hiring new employees for this, okay, or bringing from your existing?
Yes. We would plan on hiring a manager, an assistant manager, and probably 3 or 4 part-time people.
That can be a conflict, David, if you're looking for work.
And I appreciate you saying, because I was going to ask about the dark sky destination about state park. So that's been.
Yeah, we've discussed that with him. I know what the lighting requirements are. I've already sourced lights for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is that part of our special exception permit, the lighting, the dark lighting?
No, ma'am. It's, in my opinion, it's not required to be part of the special exception permit because they will have to adhere to the outdoor lighting restrictions of Rockbridge County.
Which is sufficient Is that what you're saying?
That's what I've discussed with the gentleman that came in was Mr. Jim Jones, the park ranger, of course, and I've had a follow-up conversation with him, and they actually used some of the components of our ordinance to incorporate their dark sky. So I will say I do not believe it's a full-blown dark sky ordinance that we have, but it is restricted, and it does require the full cutoff shields. It does have some minimum and maximums, and the state park is, from my understanding, comfortable with our outdoor lighting requirements. And so that will be what is reviewed by the TCO. We do have the wall packs that Mr. Hollick has mentioned. We do have the photometrics. I think we have the photometrics. We have to definitely have some details on those as far as the fully shielded and the lumens produced. We're still working with the Natural Bridge itself on the location and the style of the parking lot lights, but they will have to be fully shielded and bring in compliance with outdoor land development regulations.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing.
No one has signed up.
Okay, is there anybody online? Is there any hands raised?
There are no attendees with raised hands.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing. Any board comments or motions?
I appreciate the willingness of the Chaos Brewery and to work with the hotel and to work with the state park. I think all three can benefit from each other, and move to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, Chris, Dominion Energy.
Yes, sir. Bear with me here. I'll try. All right. Not sure why it's doing that, but bear with me here. I've shared my screen. I might have to do this the old-fashioned way, but give me a few seconds. The PowerPoint is on my screen, but it's not letting me exit this to go back to the. Try it one more time. Bear with me. All right. Sorry about that. Here's we work. All right, Dominion Power. The next application, public hearing we have tonight is for Dominion Power application for public utility in the agricultural and general use districts, the A2 zoning district. The review the area zoning map. The white is the agricultural and general use, A2, dark green is the conservation, C1, and the light green is the agricultural and limited uses districts, the A1 zoning. The Dominion tract is outlined in orange, identified as tax map number 115A-A-1 and consists of 4.05 acres. The special exception application itself, Dominion Power has made an application for a special exception permit to expand the existing Balcony Falls substation. The property is located in the A2 zoning district and per section 603.03-9 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations. Public utilities are used by special exception. Mr. Ben Jackson, engineer with Kimberly Horn, has submitted the following plans for a special exception permit. The plan shows the limits of the existing substation and the limits of the proposed substation project. The existing footprints consist of approximately 0.3 acres and the proposed consist of 0.93 acres. At the April 14th, 2021 Planning Commission held its public hearing. The public hearing was closed at that date. Discussions included the possibilities of additional landscaping in order to reduce the visual impacts along Glasgow highways and the material/finish of the backbone structures themselves associated with the substation. At the May 12, 2021, a landscaping plan was presented that included plantings along Glasgow Highway and to the west of the proposed project. Along with the landscaping plan, additional information was submitted on the proposed finish of the backbone structures, and a dulling agent will be added to the backbone structures. So it's not as, you go from galvanized steel to a dull galvanized, if you will. At the May 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the special exception application with the following conditions. Number one, the development of the property 115A-A-1 for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan titled Special Exception Plan Balcony Fall Substation dated March 17th, 2021 with a revision date of April 1st, 2021. And the landscaping plan prepared by Kimberly Horn titled Dominion Balcony Fall Substation, Rockbridge County dated April 27th, 2021. Number two, backbone structures associated with the substation to be constructed with a dulled galvanized steel. With that, I'd like to turn this portion over to via Zoom to Mr. Ben Jackson with Kimberly Horn to review additional details on the plan itself and further review the details on the landscaping plan and the finished material. Let me stop sharing. And Stefan, if you could promote Mr. Ben Jackson to, there you go. Mr. Jackson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little bit muffled, but we can hear you.
All right, give me 1 second here. There we go. Hopefully now you can see me.
Yes, well, yes, we can see you. With that, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm going to share my screen here. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so as Chris said, I am Ben Jackson with Kimberly Horn, agent for the applicant tonight, Dominion Energy. I'm here to talk about the expansion for the Balcony Falls substation in Rockbridge County. I've got the landscape plan pulled up here for y'all to see and for me to talk from. Some background on the project. The substation's been here for about 100 years. It's about 1920. It's time to be overhauled and brought up to ensure safe and reliable electric service to the surrounding area. Because the site is zoned A2, we need to go through the special exception application process. Some dimensional information on the substation here. I'm going to draw on this. The existing footprint is about like that in the red line. As Chris indicated, it's about 3 or 4/10 of an acre. And the proposed footprint is this gray shaded area here, about 9/10 of an acre. So close to doubling in size. And I should note that the majority of the expansion is this way away from Route 501 down here. Okay, that's the dimensions. Regarding the security fence, the existing fence is your typical 7 foot tall with 1 foot of barbed wire on top, a typical 2-inch chain link mesh that you see all over the place. The proposed substation security fence will be upgraded. It will be 12 feet tall, no barbed wire on top, with a tighter mesh of 5/8 inch no climb security mesh. In addition to, I think, aesthetically looking better, it also provides better screening of the equipment behind the fence because of that tighter mesh. And pictures of that were shared previously with Chris. Moving on, regarding the grading across the site, it's no surprise to anyone familiar with driving this corridor, Route 501 here. It's very steep and mountainous. And so we're proposing to construct two different retaining walls, one on this side and one over here on the west side. This one on the west side will be a little bit smaller and have an average height of about 5 feet. And the one on the east side, in addition to being longer, will have an average height of about 8 or 9 feet. The color of those retaining walls is to be determined, but it will be neutral, either gray or brown. That will be determined at final site plan when those documents are submitted to the county. And we can discuss that at that point in time. Regarding the equipment to be housed within the actual substation, when construction is complete, it'll look rather similar, maybe perhaps more modern. The existing equipment, the tallest equipment in there is existing lattice type structures that are about 45 feet tall. Those connect to the existing transmission structures leaving east and west. And then there's other various equipment, circuit breakers, control enclosure, miscellaneous bus work that is 10 to 20 feet in height. The proposed equipment, the tallest structure will be the two backbone structures. Chris shared a picture of one a minute ago. Those are about 70 feet in height and will feature that dulled galvanized finish. Other equipment is, like I mentioned, similar to the existing circuit breakers, bus work, control enclosure, all about 10 to 20 feet in height, very similar to what is there now. The finish of the other equipment will be gray, very similar to what's there now, and I think well screened by the upgraded security fence and also this landscaping, which I'll speak to in 1 second. Regarding the entrance to the site, the existing entrance is right here and loops back around this way. We will continue to use that entrance for construction, traffic, and after construction is complete for maintenance in the future. Regarding screening and the landscaping, if you're headed westbound on Glasgow Highway this way, the existing vegetation here pretty well screens the site as is and will continue to screen it after this upgrade is complete. Headed eastbound this way, we have added this series of evergreen landscaping here. The larger green symbols here are the Hollywood juniper evergreens. They're about 8 feet tall at the time of planting and will grow to about 15 or 20 feet tall, and no taller than that because of these overhead transmission lines here that restrict taller than 15 or 20 feet. These smaller green symbols here closer to Route 501 are Chinese junipers, also evergreens, 8 feet tall at the time of planting, and they will grow to about 20 or 25 feet tall, so a little bit taller because they're not underneath overhead transmission lines. I think that about does it. All of this is, of course, subject to final engineering, but we accept the conditions, the two conditions that Chris outlined a few minutes ago about being in substantial conformance with this plan, and then the dulling of the galvanized structures. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And also Dominion Energy is on the line if there's any, I'll say, pointed technical questions specifically for them.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Okay. Is there anyone online?
There are no hands raised or comments.
Then we will close the public hearing. Any discussion among the board, or do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? And a second. All right, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. The Dynamic Energy Solutions, LLC.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, and others at Dominion. With that, I'm going to attempt to first. I think this should go a little bit smoother this time. It would let me close some stuff off last time. All right, the next public hearing is for Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC application for special exception permit for a 5 megawatt AC solar project as considered a public utility in the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 zoning district. Briefly review the area zoning map. The white, which is as this property is zoned, is A2 agricultural general use. The yellow to the east is general residential. The gray to the east is general the yellow is general residential R1 district. The gray to the east is the general industrial district I1. The darker red, as shown on the map, is the general business. The green is conservation, C1. In that case, it's the Fairfield Elementary School and surrounding property. And the pink area in the area is zoned agricultural transitional, AT zoning. The Alexander tract is outlined in orange and identified as tax map number 38-10-A and is approximately 49 acres per GIS. I'd like to explain that if I can get my pointer working again. So the tax ticket that's associated with this particular parcel is actually 90.916 acres per tax records. However, that actually includes 3 tax parcels. That includes the subject parcel we're talking about tonight, which is tax map 38-10-A, but it also includes in the 90.91 acres as tax, that includes tax parcel 38-10-B, which is this location here. And then it also includes 38-10-C, which is this long skinny parcel here. So per tax records, it appears that tax map number 38-10-A is 90.91 acres. But again, that includes several different parcels that also are across the interstate. The Alexander, about the special exception application itself, Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy Solution has made an application for a 5 megawatt AC solar project along Northfield Highway near the village of Fairfield. The property is owned by James G. Alexander Jr. and Thomas J. Alexander. It is located in the agricultural and general use A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-9 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, public utilities are used by special exception. The proposed 5 megawatt site is approximately 30 acres of the Alexander farm. There's existing dairy operation on the farm. The portion of the proposed farm that's utilized for solar project has been previously utilized as a crop field. The Alexander family also owns property to the south and the property directly across the Interstate 8164 of the proposed solar project. The Planning Commission held its public hearing at the March 10th, 2021. The public hearing was continued until the April 14th, 2021 meeting. The April 14th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the public hearing was closed. I will note that the Planning Commission received very little comments on the project during the public hearing process. However, I will also note that on 4/14/2021, staff received a letter from the Rockbridge County Farm Bureau and requested that staff distribute the letter at the Planning Commission meeting. I believe that Mr. Suter passed that Farm Bureau letter along to the individual members of the Board of Supervisors. In reviewing the letter, I believe that it was pertaining to solar projects countywide, not particularly this solar project in particular, but concerns with the future of solar in Rockbridge County. Some of the letter pertained to taxing of the solar projects. Others of it pertain to the General Assembly actions on utility scale solar projects. And it also included a lot of zoning portion of the process, such as the special exception, the central exception process, where it's a permitted use and where it's a use by special exception. The letter has generated some discussion at the Planning Commission level. The review of the project was continued until the May 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. The property is also located within the Tourism Corridor Overlay. That's the TCO board. The TCO board also reviewed the application as March 3rd, 2021, April 7th, 2021, and the May 5th, 2021 meetings. The May 5th, 2021 meeting was continued until May 19th, 2021. The majority of the discussion at the Planning Commission included landscaping, screening of the project for Route 11, Interstate 64, 81, and the adjacent properties to the east. The TCO purview was the landscaping and screening along Route 11 itself. At the beginning of the project, the applicant had proposed plantings along the fence approximately 300 feet from Route 11. However, as the review moved forward, both the Planning Commission and the TCO felt that due to the topography of the land, relocating and utilizing screening trees, shrubs closer to Route 11 would provide a better screen. So with that, the laser pointer is back on. The original plans did not include any buffering or any plantings, if you will, along the Interstate 8164. So that was one comment the planning had. To address that concern, they developed a landscaping plan associated with that side. And then the original landscaping plan really had a variety of these same species that were planting. The original plantings plan was close along this fence line here, the proposed fence line. And so again, based on the topography of the land in Route 11, this site is lower than Route 11. And so the idea they came up with the idea of to relocate the landscaping plan closer to Route 11. And obviously you gain topography that way. And again, both the TCO and Planning Commission felt that this was a better screen. Throughout the process, there have been several landscaping screening techniques discussed along with the original landscaping location. As stated, other ideas have been explored utilizing moving the original plantings closer to Route 11 versus utilizing the screening tree shrubs as shown on this landscaping plan, utilizing a wooden fence along Route 11 and plantings under utility line that runs parallel to Route 11. Overall, both the TCO board and the Planning Commission felt the latest landscaping plan provided the best screening. I will let the applicant review the details of the proposed landscaping plan, the photo simulations that were included in the submitted in the package depicting the proposed landscaping at full maturity. At the May 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following application or with the following conditions. Number one, development of the property tax map 38-10-A for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan prepared by Dynamic Energy with the revision dates of September 25th, 2020, April 7th, 2021, and May 20th, 2022. Number two, the maximum height of the tilt of the solar array shall be 15 feet. Number three, landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. Number four, acceptance of the decommissioning agreement incorporating the decommissioning plan dated May 12th, 2021. And number five, approval contingent on the TCO board approval, Vdot and erosion sediment control approvals. At this time, I would like to turn this portion of the meeting over to Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC to review the details of the project, further review the landscaping details and photo simulations. So with that, I will attempt to stop sharing my screen and ask that Mr. Pat Hastings and Derek Sheehan be promoted to panelists, which y'all are both panelists, and we can hear you. Can you hear us, Mr. Hastings?
I can, yes.
Perfect. With
And
that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I do appreciate the time and consideration today. And Chris, thank you for that introduction and, all your help in kind of getting us to this point. I am under the understanding that, this is not the first solar project that the board has seen, but I think I'll start just with a brief introduction about, I should say, introduce myself and my colleague, Derek Sheehan, on the line. I'm Pat Hastings, Dynamic Energy. I'm the Director of Project Management for Dynamic, and Derek is on the line. He's the Director of Community Solar Development. And like I was going to say, just briefly introduce the project, what it is, how it works, and the specifics behind it, and get into a little bit more detail on the landscaping and what we're trying to accomplish here. So yeah, like Chris said, this is a 5 megawatt AC ground mounted solar project. This project is anticipation of the shared solar program that is going to be starting in Virginia in the Dominion territory in the next few months here. We're expecting that in early July that they're going to start accepting applications for the project. So this is in preparation, for that program. And I'll let Derek explain the community, the shared solar program and the way it works a little bit later on, just so everybody understands, the benefits that it gives to, county residents, state residents, so on and so forth. So I won't get too technical, but I'll just start basically, the system itself. There's approximately 15,600 solar modules. This system is mounted on a steel racking system. This is a little bit different. The racking system itself is a little bit different than maybe most fixed solar mounts that you've seen. Typically, solar panels obviously have to face south to get the sun. These are actually tracker systems. So the way the racking and the modules work is, in the morning time, the modules will face the east, and as the sun comes up, the system will actually track on a north and south axis as the sun goes from east to west, tracking the sun. So it gives it I shouldn't say a little bit more, but a lot more production throughout the day. Doesn't change during the seasons. It's just east to west during the day. So at the end of the day, when the sun goes down in the west, these trackers, they automatically revert back to the east for the next morning to wake up and do it all over again. The solar modules, they collect and create DC electricity. Obviously, you have to convert that to AC to be able to tap into the utility line. So out in the array, behind the array, mounted underneath are inverters. So the DC solar modules go to the AC inverters where they're converted. And those inverters basically get wired. The wire goes underground to 3 separate transformers. We'll call them, transformer pads 1, 2, and 3. Collect the AC power from those inverters, and basically feed each other in a loop and go underground all the way to the street. Well, they will interconnect with the Dominion utility lines. We call that the point of interconnection. And that voltage will, is at the same voltage Dominion's power is already at, and that's where it's metered and measured. So, I mean, from a technical standpoint, pretty simple. And, unless there's more questions, I won't go into a lot more details about, how it works. Next, I think I'll kind of talk about just, general construction progress or sequence, how we build these things, what to expect in the life cycle of the construction. Really it's pretty simple. Kind of think of it as a big erector set. The time that it takes to build a project like this is typically no more than 6 months. Once you start, once they're shoveling the ground till it's up and running. Obviously, first thing we'll do is get on site and get survey points of each of the racking rows. And I'll add this. So the way that the racking is installed is typically either driven I-beams or screws. This specific manufacturer of racking, they use helical pile screws. So they'll mark out all the points where these screws go, and a team with it kind of looks like a big track steer will come in and they'll screw in the bases of the racking itself. So yeah, like I was saying, you bring in a survey team, they survey out all those screw points. We obviously have an access road that will get people and equipment in and out. The access road is pretty much right in the middle of the parcel frontage. We have had preliminary talks with Vdot and understand, as part of the conditions and discussions with them that we're going to need to have a permit and talk about the specifics of that entrance. But right now that entrance is shown right in the middle of the property here. As far as manpower on site, through that 6 months, it's typically 25 to 30 people. Half who call general labor, putting together the modules and the racking, and the other half is more skilled labor electricians, doing all the wiring and doing all the electrical pieces. So on top of that, we have civil crews that will build the access road and help along the way in that regard. It's 15 to 30 people for the 6 months. As far as deliveries, probably expecting 40 to 50 tractor trailers worth of equipment. A majority of the trips there are for modules. You can see there's a lot of solar modules. So the way that we do that is they just come on typical 53-foot box trucks. We'll store, once they get there on the site, we'll drive them out to where they're going to be installed out in the array. So basically it's getting a truck, backed in or pulled in, unload the modules, unload the equipment, and storing it out in the field, and as fast as you can build it. And typically, the other stockpile equipment is just standing back here, ready to go for the next day or the next week. I think is like I said, as far as traffic, the tractor trailers are going to be a majority of the work during majority of the traffic during construction. Really, after the system is built, don't really expect more than 2 or 3 trips a year from general operations maintenance, whether it's lawn care or proactive maintenance with the system itself. So really, once the system is up and it's running, there's not a whole lot of traffic that needs to continue other than a proactive O&M on the property itself. I'll add this as far as the land preparation, getting ready for the site. We are not anticipating and do not anticipate moving any dirt. So the limits of the disturbance are really within the fence area that you see here itself, and just general track steer and getting equipment back into the site. So we're not planning on moving a whole lot of dirt one way or the other than the underground trenching that you can kind of see the line going from the array and out to the street. So it's minimal dirt work. A system like this, well, I should start with this. As Chris said, we have acquired a 25-year lease from the landowners, the Alexanders. A project like this, you can expect to operate successfully and I guess consistently from 25 to 30 years to get its full benefit. Like I said, there are a few moving parts in the tracker system itself, but other than that, as long as it's properly maintained, from a vegetative point of view and electrical point of view, it's pretty straightforward. So you can see this thing is going to work for a long time and do what it needs to do. And I think the conversations that we've had these past few months with not only the TCO but the Planning Commission was how is this thing going to look? We understand it's in the The elementary school is across the street here, so obviously there's a concern, and people want to talk about how is this going to look. So we understand that, and I think we've made a good effort and had good conversations with both the TCO and the Planning Commission, trying to get to an understanding and a good screening. So with that, I'll just give a little bit more detail on the landscaping plans that we've provided and how we anticipate and are planning to help shield visually, buffer the project from Route 11 and the Highway 81 as well. And I think I'll start with the highway. I think it was during one of the Planning Commission meetings, trying to add some additional landscaping as you're going, northeast on Route 81 at the speed limit, which I think is, 65 or 70 miles an hour. I think it's definitely, it's shielded and buffered naturally. There was a concern, I guess, or questions and I guess a request to add additional landscaping there. So we have done that. You can see in our visualization, I should say, can everybody see that visual?
Yes.
Okay, great. Added, evergreen and deciduous trees to help the project itself blend into the landscape as you're traveling along the highway, looking, northeast, at a decent rate of speed. So I think you'll see from the visual that we've, I think attempted and provided good landscaping and aesthetic, planting schedule there. I'll go back to the landscaping itself. So you'll see, and it's kind of hard to tell, but from that visual itself, but there's already a natural berm here along the highway, and it kind of goes down as you get further northeast, and there's that natural vegetation that's already there. So we've tried to start it further southwest back, and as you're traveling along, included there. And as you get further north, there's existing vegetation here as well. So that dark gray area is what you see here. And obviously along the residential properties back here, we've included that same typical screening and buffer with the evergreen and deciduous. So I think we kind of agreed early on that was a good plan, and I agree and think that was sufficient. I think the bigger question and a lot of the back and forth was, how is this going to look from Route 11, from the residents of the town and the county, especially being in the TCO district. So I'll pull up the visuals first. And this, just for perspective, this visualization is from the exit or entrance of the elementary school. So right about here, looking in this direction, so looking towards 81 to the west. Yeah, and I think the last plan and the visuals that we decided on and are providing here, basically it was, they wanted to make sure that, the planting, everyone to make sure that the plantings, number one, when they're planted, were sufficient height to, give an automatic, I should say, early screening. So what we've picked, in with the help of our landscape planner, the Timmons group, a front row, we'll call it, the front row is a staggered row of Nellie Stevens hollies. The reason we put these in the front, the Nellie Stevens hollies, they tend to get a bit wider. So you can see from the visual, they're kind of offset here. So between every one, there's actually another row directly behind it. So as you're planting, whether it's early on in the life of the plant, the tree, you're still going to get that width, that buffer on the lower end. So you're not waiting for it to grow in. So I think you can see that a little bit better.
Mr. Hayes, can you pause just 1 second?
Sure. Yep.
Chris, are we supposed to be looking at another?
We're supposed to be looking
Okay.
at something else.
Okay.
Okay.
We missed the visual from the elementary school. If you could.
Oh, you did? Okay. I'm sorry, the Zoom, I gotta share my screen. correctly on Zoom. Let me just do this.
There we go. We can see it.
Can
now.
everybody see the visual there? Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize I wasn't sharing the right visual. So what I was talking about, so the Nellie Stevens hollies are in front. So you can see them. They're the shorter of the variety, but they're the wider of the variety. So we put those in the front. In the back, there's green giant arborvitaes and American hollies. So you can see the American hollies are here and the green giant arborvitaes are in the back. And the reason we picked those, they're obviously taller, the taller of the species, and wanted to provide that topographic, I guess, view shed there, because you can see there's a little bit of an undulation in the property, so kind of naturally covers that. And then I was going back to the drawing itself, so you can kind of give you a closer up, just overhead view of where those plantings are. So in the front, you see the Nellie Stevens hollies, and they're kind of offset. And what I was saying is, as you to make sure that at planting, they would give enough width to visually block, and any gaps in between, as well as the green giants and the American hollies in the rear. So that was this is the view from the elementary school, basically at the entrance and the exit. We did another visual and another perspective from further down on Route 11. And I'll give you the perspective view right now. It is approximately from this point right here and looking north. So I'll go to that visual. And this is a little bit closer up, just the perspective picture from Google Earth that they captured it from. But I think gives you a better view, and you can see the species a little bit better. So you have the Nellie Stevens hollies in front, green giant arborvitaes, and the American hollies behind it to give it more height. Yeah, so I guess before I ramble on anymore, does anybody have any questions or specifics that they'd like me to talk about with the landscaping plan itself?
Will the solar panels be visible at their height from Route 11 or 81?
Yes.
I mean, I'm fine with landowners using their land for whatever. My only concern would be if it causes distractions while driving or causes issues with that.
Sure.
In your opinion?
Well, that was I apologize because I don't think I included my report, but that was one of the common concerns with the Planning Commission and TCO. And we did have a glare analysis provided from Dynamic that showed little to no glare. And then also, as far as a talking point, one of the Planning Commission members asked if they had ever done a large project like this along a major interstate type thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember what size it was, but it was a significantly larger size than this. If I recall correctly, Dynamic did that against the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Is that correct, Mr. Hastings?
That is correct. In the project, it was actually smaller, but of similar size. Well, I should say it was about a 1 megawatt. So I mean, it was 1/5, but it was and I kind of have the glare analysis that we did for this project, but it was very similar as far as offset to the road. It was about 1,000 feet off of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and there obviously have been no issues there. And I will point out just briefly, I guess, how this glare study works. So it actually takes, it's a specific software that you can put pathways, you can put perspective points around the project. So these little dots, the little flags you see here are real perspective points, and they take into account the topography of the land itself and the perspectives, and do a glare analysis to see if there's any glare. And obviously, I think, I'm not sure if everybody's seen this, but there's no glare concerns from this project itself. And I can go through the whole report if you want me to, but kind of long and short of it, there were no issues. And I'll add, I mean, typically we do these glare analyses if glare analyses if there are airports in the area for other projects, and you can get to pedestrian street levels as well. So these points are definitely from actual topographies.
Mr. Slayton, one other question I had was when I was reviewing it, it looked like the lease was for 25 years and didn't look like it had any type of renewal options or extensions to the lease. Is this a one-time shot, 25 year or?
Not on our end. On our end, the special exception would run with the land. And so we do not, this is not a temporary special exception permit. So while the equipment and Mr. Hastings and Mr. Sheehan could address that, the lease option better than myself. But with that being said, per our ordinance, per the planning and zoning side of things, this could run with the land, meaning that they would have the ability to renew the lease and potentially renew the equipment. The conditions would have to be the same. The conditions also run with the land. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I mean, I didn't see any type of refurbishing of the equipment or anything like that in there. So, and in his prior comments, he said that typically lasts 25 years. So that was going to be my next question, is how the maintenance of the project, if it's only on their end, only deemed to be viable for 25 years, or is it going to be continuous maintenance and refurbishing of the equipment so it lasts longer?
And I'll let Mr. Sheehan or Mr. Hastings address that question.
Sure. And I'll answer it really quick, and I'll let Derek answer the question about the lease and the option to extend. And I guess to be clear, so solar PV itself, has a typical lifespan from a warranty standpoint. So the solar modules, they're guaranteed and warranted to put out a certain amount of power for 25 years. That's not to say, and they typically do and can last over 25 years. So, and these things can, to be honest, can operate, up to 40 years as long as the system is still producing, the solar modules themselves, the inverters, if you properly maintain them, and it can last more than 25 years. And I think, with that, I'll let Derek, I'm sure there's a specifics in the lease, to extend it past 25 years. I'll let him answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. And thank you to the board for having us this evening. So there are options to extend, at the discretion of the landowner.
Mr. Sheehan, could we get Mr. Hastings? Yes, we can hear you fine. Sorry to interrupt you. One of the supervisors asked that you stop sharing your screen so we could see you, please. Or Mr. Hastings stop sharing his screen so we can see you, please. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So there are options to extend with at the landowner's discretion. The reason why, there's a couple of reasons why we land on 25 years. One, as Pat mentioned, the equipment is warranted by the manufacturers for 25 years. So that kind of, those two line up there. The other reason is that typically these shared solar programs or community solar programs, the programs usually have a term set out from the onset of 25 years, sometimes 20. It depends on, state to state, utility to utility. In this case, we're anticipating a 25-year shared solar program. Now, the program could be extended, or there may be some option to, potentially power at a wholesale rate directly to the utility, which I can get into a little bit of the details of why, or what the shared solar program is and why, why Virginia is implementing the program. But I guess the short of it is that, yes, there is an option to extend for the landowner.
For the community around it, I mean, is the power going to be just assigned to the grid itself and pass through the existing power distributions, or is it, power that the community around there can tap into?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to kind of highlight the reason that shared solar or community solar programs are becoming more and more popular. So really the main driver for these programs is typically only 1 in 5 homes meet the requirements to install solar on your roof or property. So even if you wanted to install solar, you had the money to purchase a system and you wanted to install it on your roof, there are a number of hurdles that might prevent you from doing so. One could be the age of your roof. It might need to be repaired or replaced before you put solar up there. You may have a very hipped roof, which prevents you from installing an adequate amount of panels to cover 100% of your energy usage. You could have a homeowners association that prevents you from installing solar. You could be a renter, and then you're not able to install it because restrictions from the owner or the landlord. So there are a number of hurdles that prevent homeowners and businesses from being able to go solar. So what shared solar program does is, instead of installing panels on people's roofs, we build one large solar project, at an ideal site location, and everybody's panels are out in the field together, essentially generating electricity. So the way it works is, if you were interested in subscribing, it's anybody in the Dominion utility territory who has an electric account can subscribe to a community or a shared solar project. And it's kind of a similar process to if you wanted to get solar for your home. You would start by looking at your energy usage, and we would match you with the equivalent production of the number of panels you would need to cover home's total electricity usage. So one resident might need 20 panels, another might need 50. So each subscriber assigned a specific amount of production based off of their energy usage, and then each month, as the project generates electricity, the utility tracks that production, and then they apply everybody's relative portion of that produced energy to their electric bills. And the credit, if you will, the solar credit that the subscriber receives, just shows up as a new line item directly on the electric bill, which will offset their usage effectively. And so as an example, you see about a 10% discount to the subscriber. They're also typically free to enroll in, so there's no upfront cost to join a shared solar program. So essentially you enroll, and once the program is up and running, each month you'll just start getting a credit on your bill that, for example, if your bill is $100 a month, you would receive about $100 worth of production. That production can vary a little bit from month to month, obviously, because seasonal changes in sunlight and solar insolation impact production, but it should average out over the year to cover 100% of your electric bill. And then in turn, you would pay to the solar garden the new discounted rate for your solar energy. So you would receive $100 worth of credit, and then in turn, you would pay the solar garden $90, realizing that 10% discount in savings. So that's really kind of the nuts and bolts for
business. Is there anything special they have to do at their location to receive it, or is it just you're still coming through the normal power lines?
Yep, still coming through the normal power line. There's no installation or any change whatsoever. It's all just done virtually. So essentially, all we need to enroll a subscriber is, for the most part, just their account number with the utility and their share size. And then, the utility will just start applying that credit.
So
it is a, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, so this, I think I read, is 1,000 homeowners. Is that correct? Is that approximately
Yes.
1,000 homeowners? that this-
Yes, yeah, it should.
So would that be from Rockbridge County? Is that from, where is that from? Is this businesses? Could governments, for instance, buy this energy? How do you decide who buys the energy?
Yeah, so it can depend on the rule of the program. Some states, it kind of depends on how the credits are valued. Sometimes they're valued based on the subscriber's rate class. So if you're like a higher commercial user that has demand-based charges, sometimes that can impact the value of your credit. But we have kind of yet to see how those rules are going to play out here in Virginia. But typically, yes, it's available to municipalities, businesses, residents, and the program, they operate on a first come, first served basis. So we're allowed to start subscribing the project. It's really whoever wants to enroll can get a share of the solar, no cost, no installation. And it's available to Rockbridge County residents, but really to any resident within the Dominion utility territory. So that being said, there can be.
So is there a list
sorry.
now? I'm just curious. Is there a list currently, or has this started yet? The subscriber?
No. So no marketing or subscriber acquisition efforts have commenced yet in Virginia. We don't anticipate them to commence, at least at this point. I think the later of once Dominion sets up their kind of the protocol for subscribing folks to the Solar Garden, or getting new subscribers onto the Solar Garden. And I think the deadline as of today is by July 1st of 2023. So, or the sooner of when they develop those protocols. So as of now, no, there's no wait list or anything. The project is totally open and kind of unspoken for. However, we did have a university reach out with some interest, which is kind of just neither here nor there, but I guess some word is getting out and there is interest.
Well, I'm just wondering how, when you say, I mean, I guess there's a possibility that we could do this and still nobody in Rockbridge County could take advantage of this discount. Correct?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, theoretically, that could happen. I mean, I don't think that there are ways too that we could look at like local marketing efforts kind of as we're getting ready to break ground. We do have the ability to open up to Rockbridge County residents before it would be kind of advertised on a more wider basis through the state. So, I think that's certainly something we could attempt to make sure that there is at least the initial marketing efforts are geared specifically towards Rockbridge County residents so that the community could benefit as much as possible.
So are you saying there will be preference given, or you're going to consider that?
I think it's there certainly can be preference given. I think we're a little early on in the marketing efforts at this point. Like we really haven't started to look at them yet, as we don't even have guidance yet from Dominion of how how we can or how the marketing will be what the marketing protocols will be. But no, I think we can certainly.
But you said that wouldn't happen until 2023, and this project would be started when?
So as of now, the July 1st is the date that the program will open up and begin accepting projects for consideration. The program is capped at 150 megawatts with the addition, the potential to add another 50 megawatts. So as of right now, the max size are 5 megawatts. So we're talking the potential for 30 projects to be built under the initial program, with the possibility for the addition of another 10 projects. So the program will start accepting projects July 1st of this year, although there has been a motion filed to push it to October 1st, because the timing of the guidance coming from Dominion is just a little tight. So there's been a request to ask for it to be pushed back. But kind of the other side of when they'll actually go into production, have the ability to start subscribing customers is kind of when Dominion comes up with the protocol for actually accepting subscribers. And I think part of it too is typically the utility kind of has to put together the processes internally to do the crediting for subscribers. And right now in the tariff, they have until July 1st of 2023, or if they get it done sooner, but that the law is written right now. So that being said, we would certainly have plenty of time to come up with, if there was interest to entertain a way to, come up with a unique way to have this registered or have some sort of waiting list that we could put together for Rockbridge County residents or businesses or, the county itself or other municipal buildings or electric accounts.
Any other questions?
You mentioned there might be just four visits a year after initial construction, but then you also mentioned lawn maintenance. Do you have a plan for how you intend to maintain the site?
Sure, absolutely. And this is Pat again. So I guess we'll start with, what are we maintaining, right? So we're maintaining obviously the landscaping and plantings, the visual buffer along the boundaries of the property. After construction is done, we will plant a new seed, right? So a low growth, we call it a seed mix, right? So there's nurseries that make this special solar seed mix, and it's there's fescues and different varieties of grass that grow not too high, so they don't get above the solar modules themselves and start to shade them. So really what you're doing is call it two or three times a year, as needed, going in and just mowing the grass, cutting the grass. So that's what I was kind of referencing as far as landscaping and that maintenance piece of it.
So you're gonna take up the current turf.
Well, the current surface right now is farm soil, right? And the remnants of the plantings, corn and soybeans, whatever it was, it's corn. But we'll leave, the natural soil there. So we're not bringing in or removing any soil. Basically, after the project, and bring in a Harley rake, turn it up, get the invasive species or any weeds that are there, get them out, and create a new seed bed. Get ruts out if there's any ruts and from construction activities.
Okay. What about a siting for this? Was your firm engaged in that?
The sightings?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the farm. There are other spots that might have been more topographically possible, for the visual aspect. And I was just wondering if any of those others have been. Now, of course, that's the landowner, has some say in that, and obviously I also support his effort here to utilize his land, but I just wondered about that.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I mean, when they first, we have a business development team, and Derek's part of that team. And basically where we start is, we look for number one, sites that have enough property. We try to avoid sites that are in residential areas.
I was just speaking of
really
Mr. Alexander's property. Existing.
Oh, okay. And that's really has to do with, you know, Mr. Alexander and what they're willing to give up and what they're, you know, and I'm sure, and I personally was not part of those exact conversations early on, but, you know, what does he benefit? You know, what lands are beneficial to him? So that's kind of the areas that they agreed upon was, you know, that lease area.
Anything else? All right, I think we're ready to open the public hearing.
We have Mr. David Reynolds signed up. Good evening, how are y'all?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I'm David Reynolds from South River District. So I come to represent myself, and I'm a representative for Rockbridge County Awareness. So I live right down the street from where the proposed solar thing's going in, and then Rockbridge County Awareness is comprised of residents in all voting districts of the county. So you may have remembered us speaking at the Robert Whipple, the whole rezoning, or not rezoning, repairing and correcting the confined feed, all that stuff in the agriculture zoning. So we supported that. We support the Alexanders and their efforts to create versatility on their own farmland and to ensure a retirement package for them because they're getting close to that age. So we would support a yes vote for this conditional use permit. We do have a concern that we do not want to stop this process from going forward if you so choose to do so. But the biggest problem we see is it's our understanding as an organization that the state has tax exempted solar arrays and other green energy projects. So as an organization, we don't see a loss in base tax revenue for the county for the land itself. It'll still be, I guess, zoned agriculture and be in agricultural uses. They'll still pay probably the same personal property tax on the land as before, but there will be no increased tax revenue from the structures themselves. Versus me, if I make an addition to my facilities, I'm going to pay more personal property tax. That's a gain for the county. That's problematic. It still should not penalize the Alexanders for choosing to do this with their property, but why does the state allow these to be completely tax exempt and penalize our county for a project this large? And also, I don't see any more new jobs created, anything like that. I think it would be wise on our part as a county to investigate why the state would allow this and how there's got to be some type of compensation from either the contractor building the array or Dominion to this county to make up for a difference. I mean, we've run county water and sewer through Fairfield. You know, I don't want to see subdivisions, which would be a huge increase in tax revenue base. I'd rather see a solar array. And by the way, I won't mind seeing it every day if it's approved and built. But I would like to see that investigated thoroughly. But once again, please don't let it hinder an approval for the Alexanders to do as they please within the confines of the law. Again, sorry I'm hoarse at pollen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask Chris or somebody to address what I understood that if this is in land use currently, the property's in land use, the 40 acres, or whatever, that it would revert back and that it would come out of land use. Is that not correct? That is what I understand.
I'm going to refer to Ms. Hupkin on that because she's done a tremendous amount of work on the taxing issue.
That is my understanding. It will depend on the Commissioner of Revenue, of course, but this would, in my opinion, be a commercial use of the property, and it would then come out of land use and they would be paying on the full value of the real estate. But that is for the real estate tax. There is, for any project under for about 5 megawatts or less, there is an exemption of for all personal property associated with it being certified pollution control equipment and facilities. So that has been in effect for quite a while now. At least since 2017, I believe, is when those provisions were initially adopted, and then the solar has been added to that definition last year, I think. So it covers a number of other types of personal property and facilities, encouraging them, I assume, through the exemption. But the end result is they are not taxable in the county.
And I suppose the
Or
state
anywhere
doesn't-
else.
The state doesn't give us the money.
But the landowner is going to pay a higher tax rate?
The landowner will pay on the full value rather than the land use value.
So according to our speaker, that even makes, so the landowner's being penalized, the county's being penalized.
Well, the landowner is getting
The lease income.
the lease
Right.
revenues.
Well, and I don't know what that is, but if we're gonna take away the land use exemption, his taxes are gonna go up.
That's correct. For that part.
Right, for that part.
But he's no longer using it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I just hope he knows that.
And is it, while you're talking about taxation, I mean, the panels themselves and all, they're not subject to like machine and tools or any type of property tax. But if there is fencing or anything like that, would that be subject to taxing, or would that increase the value of the property on the real estate? How would that work?
I suppose it could be incorporated into evaluation of the real estate. I mean, it depends on whether it's viewed as a fixture to the land or personal property, which is removable. You can pick it up and take it elsewhere. Fencing, I have always thought of as being something that's necessary in order to use it, but it doesn't necessarily increase its value. At least that's what I've heard over the years, but I can't say that for sure.
So we absolutely know that we will not be receiving any personal property tax from
this project, unless they volunteer it, unless they offer it, and they have no obligation to do that.
But we don't have to pass it.
That's true.
Yeah, I hate to do this, but I'm just not, we're still in the public hearing.
I'll get to you in a sec. Let's see if there's anybody else.
Making some comment. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
And then I'll listen to you.
There are no one else physically present signed up.
Any hands up or?
This is Pat Hastings again. Am I allowed to make a quick comment?
Sure.
And what I was going to say, I mean, in regards, I guess maybe separately from the taxes, somebody asked, how does a community benefit, and, is it, creating, permanent local jobs? So, other than the local landscaping and maintenance that will be required ongoing, that will be a permanent job. But I'll say this, I mean, when when these things are built, the general labor that I talked about, all the landscaping and the plantings, the access road, the surveyors. I mean, there's a significant portion of the project on the construction side that is sourced labor locally. So there is, I guess I didn't want that to be lost on anybody, but I'm sure you can assume that, but it's not insignificant. So I did want to add that to the conversation. So that was it.
Mr. Lewis, you were going to say.
Yeah, I feel like I have some questions too. I hate to delay the process farther, but I think we're tangling with different thoughts and different concerns than the TCO and the Planning Commission, who did very thorough on what their charges are and are bringing us a plan. But I would wonder if we could continue the public hearing till a subsequent meeting of ours, and see if we can all get some answers to more questions and hopefully feel better about the project and have Mr. Alexander get what he wants.
So is that a motion?
Well, I just want to make sure from Ms. Huffman what the parameters are around continuing a public hearing.
I believe we can continue it up to 30 days. Is that correct?
If you continue your public hearing, you can actually go out for some time. I mean, I wouldn't recommend 6 months,
Well,
but
I was thinking the second June meeting,
yeah.
which is
So was
roughly
that the
30 days.
24th, or is that
you don't have a time limitation on the period between your public hearing.
Okay, it's the 28th would be the
28th.
second June meeting. And like I say, I'm cognizant of not trying to drag the process on. Everybody's worked hard on it so far, but I just think this board should take just a little more time.
okay? So now,
I would make that a motion that we
Okay,
can
thank you.
we continue the public hearing to the
28th.
28th.
Okay, so we have a motion
Is that
to continue the
June?
public hearing on June 28th.
June 20th? I'll second that.
And we have a second. Is there any discussion concerning that? Okay, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We will continue this public hearing on June the 28th.
Mr. Chairman, in the meantime, what would be the best route for questions we may have, or route them through you or Ms. or Slayton, or-
I would think Mr. Slayton. I'd be happy to get them to him, or
It really depends on what type of question. Obviously, I'm happy to facilitate any type of questions I can. But if they are planning and zoning related, absolutely, I think I would be appropriate contact. If they're taxi related,
or if you send them to me, I'll direct them out to
fair enough.
the appropriate staff. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, with relating to the revenues and that type of thing, I have had some discussions with Commissioner Weitzel, and I think that between Mr. Weitzel and Ms. Huffman and I, we could probably answer those.
You mean
counting
you can answer them now?
No. If there are questions, relating to revenue, we can certainly talk about those. Mr. Slayton is, of course, the planning and zoning and land use.
So send them to me and I'll forward them out and copy everyone when I forward them. All right, we're continuing that. So are there any board comments? Just to put in your mind, we will have a county fair this year. I believe that last weekend in August in Glasgow. It's coming together nicely. Please block out some time to help make it successful. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr.
We
Lewis.
do have one hand raised. I believe
Oh.
Mr. Hastings was wanting to
Yeah,
ask.
I wanted to close it, and I say I appreciate and understand the board's decision, and please feel free to reach out to us directly to discuss or help facilitate those conversations as far as, taxes or revenue sharing, we definitely would like to, help in that matter. So I just wanted to add that. Don't be afraid to reach out.
And Chris, if you'll send me the contact information, so if I have a question, I need to send to them.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hastings, where is your office?
Where's my office? So I'm myself in Wayne, Pennsylvania right now. So our headquarters in Wayne, Pennsylvania.
All right, this is a big decision for us. It's good to have people here in person if at all possible. It's
Sure.
difficult to
Yeah.
work on this.
Absolutely. And the reason I said to reach out to us is because we have retained an attorney that specializes, for this project and others in taxes in Virginia specifically. So they can speak that nomenclature and that specific, rules and languages. So we definitely want to help in that manner. By no means am I a tax expert, but we do have that help available. So that's kind of why I say it.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day? And the chair votes yes. Thank you all.